Yes. Okay. Thank you. And I noticed that in your previous discussion or statement that you mentioned about you think that the CPTPP TPP is a good idea, and maybe U.S. should be back on that. And actually, now we're having the WTO kind of a marginalized and paralyzed, if not use that word. And then we see the RCEP is being effected January 1st next year. CPTPP is one of the most advanced trade, agreement, free trade agreement among initially designed by the U.S. largely, and now U.S. is back out of that. But China actually showed a great interest. China actually, Premier Li and President Xi all expressed strong interest to join the CPTPP, and actually UK is applying that. South Korea may apply that. So do you think probably if also maybe US is coming back someday? So we have a new platform to talk about the 21st century trade issues, and because the WTO cannot solve things because it's get so clumsy, and one is 64 members, whereas TPP have 12, 13, 14 members. We can really work on something on that and solve those difficult issues, and then we may lead the world for a guaranteed trade prosperity, investment prosperity. So what do you think about this, CPTPP that we what it can bring and what can be working together?
Well, I thought it was a major mistake on the part of President Trump to pull out of the TPP. And I'm glad that Japan moved forward to work on the CPTPP. That acronym I struggle with it, but I thought that was a very good thing that they did that. I wish that the Biden administration would see the opportunity to join CPTPP, but I don't know that they're going to. And that's a mistake in my view. I mean, in my view, we should be leaning forward. Every country has to find ways to get higher productivity in their economies in order to pay for the different things we have to do. You have an aging society. We have an aging society. We've got a widened gap in economic opportunity in America. The best way, one of the few really good ways to deal with that is to expand and open up wider on trade opportunities. I don't know that the Biden administration is going to see it that way, unfortunately. But I do think, and I also think that there is a larger restructuring underway now. We're starting to see it started before the COVID pandemic, but we're starting to see instead of globalization, we're starting to see regionalization of trade patterns. And of course, that was a very large push of the Trump administration to bring manufacturing back to the United States. I do think that there is a big sorting out that's going on now. My personal concern is that I'm worried because of the tension between China and the United States and the policies that we're taking. We could be, unfortunately, dividing the global economy into two spheres. And I don't know that that's going to be good for anybody. I mean, it isn't going to be a catastrophe, but I don't think it's the best interests of everyone. And the trend we're on right now is very much towards bifurcating the international economic order. And I think the trade issue fits into that, Henry. So I think there needs to be a larger conversation about where is the global economy going? What trends are underway? Can we manage the trends that are emerging? There's some big issues here. And of course, with the Center for China and Globalization, this is a pretty big deal for you. So it's a conversation we should probably have together at some point.
Yeah. Thank you, John. And so actually, that I'm very pleased to see that USTR Kathleen Tsai spoke at CSIS just not too long ago, and she actually said recoupling, and so right. I mean, I think that she's talking to Vice Premier Liu He and China counterpart, and I, trade is probably the biggest, connectivity between our two countries, and U.S. companies still doing a lot of business in China, like a Universal Studio they just opened in Beijing. It's the largest in the world, and it's only opened a third of it. It's already the largest in the world. We have millions of people flooded there. I can't get a ticket to see the Universal Studio in Beijing. So the potential for U.S. business is enormous, and we can't see how we can. Tesla is doing fabulous here, and Boeing and Qualcomm and many other U.S. companies. So you're right. I mean, this business that we have a bipolar world, we have a two sphere of system that is going to be really destructive to the world. So I agree that we really need to work together. And so finally, we had about we already have about 10,000 people watch online. We have 100 people conference from all think tank community. We're going to have a lot of things going on this whole day. So John, you're really kind to be our first speaker. And since today is a think tank innovation conference summit, so we like to come back again on some think tank question, because like the U.S., you have a revolving door, you have a nonpartisan stand, you have how this running a U.S. think tank. I know you moved to a new building a few years back. When I first went to CSI, it was actually on a very small office. Now you have a huge building now. So how do you think tank advice? How does the U.S. think tank and what can be shared with Chinese colleagues during our think tank today conference?
Well, Henry, I would look. I can only speak about America. I don't know other countries well enough to really talk about their systems. But I know in America, we're in a period where our two political parties are so busy just fighting each other over small matters that they don't have time to think about big ideas. So that's what think tanks are now doing. That's what we're now trying to do. We're trying to do strategic thinking for America. And I think that's a role that think tanks in general should be embracing. We have to develop ideas and test them out, explore them. How would they work? Where would they not work? I mean, we have to do all of that because right now our governments are struggling to find ways to work with each other. And I think it's very important. I think in my 21 years at CSIS, I feel like we're just starting to pick up our real program, because I think the future we're going to need people like CSIS and other think tanks. We're going to have a much bigger role to play over the next 20 years. So, and I think that's probably the case around the world. I mean, governments struggle to deal with new ideas. New ideas come in, and usually big bureaucracies take old ideas and make them more complicated. They don't invent new ideas. So think tanks have to do that. And that's where we have to have good, constructive relations with our own government, but then also open conversations with friends in other countries.
That's great. And so, John, I mean, I personally visited CSIS many times and participate quite a few activities, even one debate at one time. And also, I know that we had an event this year with a Singapore think tank, CSIS, CCG together. You spoke there as well. So what do you think about the track 2? The 1.5 track that think tank dialogues, particularly U.S. and China, can bring the relationship into more understanding, into more better communication. As you said, the government probably too busy. We can provide a lot of ideas and in those dialogues. So what do you think about that? And particularly during this difficult time, and also plus the pandemic, we need more think tank dialogues like we have today.
I absolutely agree. I think over the next 10 years, track 1.5, track 2 dialogues are going to be more important than any time in our history. It's hard for the governments to meet each other because the politicians are so busy throwing rocks at the other side. Okay, we can at least meet and talk to each other as professionals and as friends. That doesn't mean we're always going to agree, but it means we can have an honest conversation with each other. And I think it's very hard for that to happen now in government circles. So we have a very important mission, I think, over the next, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I mean, it's going to be more important than ever that we explore in conversations like we're having now. Okay, where do we disagree? And why do we disagree? And what can we do about it? There have to be some parts where we have common interests, even though we don't talk about it to each other. What are those? What are those things? And then we're going to be in a better position when we have real hard issues that we have to share with each other, because we're going to have that. We're big countries. I mean, that's unavoidable. But we do have to have a framework where we can talk to each other. And I think that's what track 1.5 is going to be, especially over the next 10, 15 years.
Yes, great. Thank you. Thank you, John Hamre. That's Dr. Hamre. Actually, you are really sharing a very valuable insights this morning and this evening. And, we talked quite a few things about how U.S.-China can collaborate. We talk about climate change, fighting pandemic, infrastructure, U.S. foreign policy, and also U.S. internal politics, and of course, China-U.S. cooperation, and the importance of think tank in a contemporary world as well. So really, it's a fascinating opening panel for opening section for our think tank conference today. So on behalf of Center for China Globalization, I want to thank you so much, Dr. John Hamre, President of CSIS, one of the most influential think tank in the U.S. So I appreciate your comment, your last word, and we say goodbye to you.
Well, let me say again how much I admire what you've done, Dr. Wang, at the Center for China and Globalization. I'm very impressed by the scholars you have, the professionalism of your programs. I'm sorry these last 2 years we've not been able to meet, but we can do it this way. And as I said, I do feel we're in a period of time where we're going to have to be honest with each other about where we disagree, but we have to have a framework where we're talking to each other where we can understand each other. And I think you will play a crucial role in that, and I hope that we can continue to work together.
Thank you so much, John, and thank you for your fabulous discussion. Thank you.
I appreciate being invited. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Great. Okay, goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye now.